Alrighty, GM everyone. This should be a fun talk. How are you doing, Donnie?
I'm doing great, man. It's been a wild week. What's up with you?
It's been a great week. um, yeah, hopefully the title says everything, at least for me, anyways, what I'm interested in talking about. What do y'all think?
I think we could go a lot of different directions this time around, and I'm happy to stick with this one because I don't want it to get too scattered. So I'll keep my thoughts in line and write them down for next time or something.
Oh, okay, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, as we always do, let's navigate the space of conversation. But this is definitely one topic that, for me, anyways, has surfaced as an incredibly relevant. Not just because of the amount of I wouldn't even call it feedback; I would call it blowback. That a recent launch of a project has caused, but also because I think this is very relevant to what ontology does and just generally for the space of decentralized identity. So I definitely want to make space for kind of the way that we normally talk, but hopefully we'll find our way back here. For anybody who's just joining us today, if this is your first time coming to one of our spaces, we do usually keep these discussions open for the first couple of minutes, usually 10, 15 minutes. We're just kind of talking about what we've been doing over the course of a week. And then we identify one or two kind of talking points that we really want to nail in on or zoom into. And for me, again, the title "Doxed in the Age of Crypto Intelligence" speaks to some of the conversations that have been happening around crypto for the last 2 days. But with that said, Donnie, GM, you said it's been a busy week. Tell us a little bit about what's going on, man.
Yeah, the stuff that I've been keeping my eyes on is Bitcoin DeFi protocol that launched, which
Let's
I think
go.
is leaning in the direction of all of the stuff that we've been talking about over the course of time, where there's this like no single chain preference, everybody partaking, figuring out where things belong. Not that one will win, but like who's going to do what the best and where people will lean
Mm.
into that. And I don't know if Bitcoin is going to be the home of DeFi in the future, but we'll never know unless we try, I suppose, right? So this is a pretty fun path to go down. And the other thing was the
Yeah.
XRP news this morning about
Oh my
not.
gosh, that just
I know.
happened, right?
Oh, you didn't hear this?
Well, no, I knew the news just broke, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't see this coming, to be honest. I figured everything was going to be a security except for Bitcoin. Like that was just where my brain was at. But Gensler, so we've all just been like ragging on Gary Gensler for 5 years, 4 years now, 5 years since he taught those MIT classes where he like was on video saying that cryptocurrencies
Hmm.
are not securities, and we were all just like, well, then what are you doing? Saying the exact opposite. I mean, I understand learning requires a change of perspective, right? So like people are allowed to change their perspective, but
It's called
it
change of
always seems like,
employer, but go on.
yeah, it very much seems that way. It also seems like if you fud something hard enough, you can accumulate a bunch of it right before you decide that now it's worth something. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
you know what
that's
I'm
shit.
saying?
Wait, are you saying that Gensler is a
Price
degen?
suppression.
Because that
Yeah,
sounds pretty degenerate.
it does. It sounds conspiracy theorist too, and that's not who I am. I just like I acknowledge that when people have the inside scoop on something and they have a vested interest in it, that I mean it's a conflict of interest. So
Well,
that's
SEC,
what that
right?
is.
That would be
Yeah,
really what the SEC is there for,
and I
to
guess we could tie
like
this into
hammer on.
centralization altogether, centralization, and and then tie it back to DID, and then tie it back to what we initially talked about. But let's not take that super fast route. I want to ask Polaris what he's been doing all week too, man.
Yeah, man. Oh my gosh, so much going on. Polaris GM, buddy, what's going on your end of the world? Where are you in this? What time zone are you in?
GM, it's 9 o'clock and in the nighttime here. I'm just winding down. But yeah, I'm still processing the news about the XRP, and I like where this conversation is heading towards because I've heard. Um, I mean, I mean, I know about Arkham Intelligence. I heard the CEO speak uh, a couple of months back, And yeah, let's go. Let's hear what everyone's got to say.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, as someone who's building a decentralized data platform, I've been pretty invested in the research of a lot of, I would say, either similar products or, sufficiently differentiated products in the decentralized data space, and Arkham Intelligence was up there. It's just really interesting what they lead with, which is their tagline. If you go to their Twitter account, it's de-anonymizing blockchain, which in itself I think it's a pretty big statement, but it is not terribly uh, kind of doesn't terribly change things too much, because there's this false perception that the blockchain is anonymous. And let's just put that to bed right now. The blockchain is the opposite of anonymous. It's a public ledger. Everything is publicly available. So, keep that in mind. Any thoughts
So this is,
on that?
First of all, Arkham is a wild name for a company like that, because isn't that like the prison from Batman, or like an insane asylum essentially? Isn't that where like all the bad guys are
Yeah,
stored? So
basically.
it's kind of a weird, or maybe very poignant name, I guess.
Well,
Right?
did you read their white paper? Because I did. I actually took
I
a ton
didn't
of
go
notes, and I was going
full.
to publish a video
No, man,
on
I
my
didn't go full
reaction.
into it. I read a little bit about it, and from what I gather, it's like gamified, crowdsourced doxing, right?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean,
More or less.
to be fair, that's just one aspect of their business. They're a data analytics platform. They're there to really surface or to give meaning. See, okay, let me backtrack a little bit, because you talked about Arkham, and I wanted to make a point on that. You need to, people in crypto or just generally business owners, be mindful of your branding. Um, you know, giving something a name like Arkham, I think already positions you one way. And then I'm looking at the white paper, and I read. I mean, gosh, if you saw I have it in front of me right now. The rustling of paper right now. It's literally the white paper that I have in front of me. Because again, I've been taking some notes on it. A lot of the language that they use in the white paper is very similar to that of Arkham. And I think it really speaks to a certain perspective of a certain segment or subsegment of the crypto community. And when you write in a certain way, I think it automatically positions you and draws lines around you, and segments you away from a lot of other people who are working in this space. And I would say, very right off the bat, I see a very clear line between regens and degens being drawn in what Arkham Intelligence stands for, right? Where there's this regenerative group of people who are building technology, who is going to add value to the human experience using this technology. And then there's a degenerate who's like, I could care less about how we move the needle forward for humanity, as long as I make money. And you know, I think there's a large population who certainly is degenerate in the space of Web3. I'm not saying everyone, but there's a lot of people who like to play money games. And just reading this, it just seems like there's language that, at least for me, reminds me of that type of behavior, that type of community. Go ahead. I think you have your hands up.
So
Polaris? Did I lose you, or is he still speaking?
I believe he's rugged.
see what I've clocked from
Okay, Polaris. Oh,
so far from our
hey, Polaris. You're being rugged,
outcome
buddy.
is that.
Can you
Can you
jump off and jump back on? Yeah.
Oh God!
Now we
No,
can.
you're cutting off. Get a better
Guys,
signal. Move around. Do a little dance. Yeah, you're getting rugged. So maybe Wi-Fi or 5G or yeah, jump out, jump in. We'll bring you back up. Donnie, any thoughts on language, building narratives, in the space of Web3? How important is
And
that?
if I did have anything to say about that, I think it would be kind of uneducated because I haven't read that yet. But I think it's insanely important just for any business that wants to build into something that points itself in a direction ideologically and gains a specific clientele and traction. I mean, branding is more or less it's everything. It means more than the product in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, so I also want to recognize because I've read the white paper and I've seen some of the other things that they've written, including their documentation. They're doing a lot of really great things, really interesting, very innovative when it comes to the space of decentralized data. I want to recognize that, right? The thing that I think is having a lot of people react negatively is doesn't have anything to do with the technology, doesn't have to do with the democratization of the technology, because that is first and foremost, in my opinion, something that they make very clear. And again, for someone who's building a decentralized data product, that's my North Star too. It's how can we democratize the tools that only a few have access to right now. So I do want to put that out there. I want to celebrate them for finding a way to democratize these tools. Really, the response, the reaction, if you will. And again, this is only my personal opinion. And in fact, I've invited the founder, the CEO, to join me on a podcast so that we can break this down. So I'm open to understanding this maybe in a way that I don't understand it right now. But really is this idea of looking at the space of blockchain as one that's anonymous or pseudonymous, and then creating a tool. And again, this is based on their tagline, where you are de-anonymizing people and incentivizing the use not just of on-chain data, because I'm a proponent of that. That is publicly available information. It's a public ledger. If you want to connect the dots between wallets to create intelligence, as they call it, bravo. But if you're bringing in personal identifiable information, that to me is makes me nervous, right? Because let's not even talk about like the GDPR and CDPR, in the United States. There, we need to be careful with the identity, the real world, like mixing real world identities with on-chain data. Obviously, ontology builds decentralized identity tools, which propose the exact opposite of that, right? Not everything needs to be on chain. Not everything needs to be blended together to reveal PII of people. People need to have self-sovereign identities. So that, again, those are the things I'm responding to. But I think Polaris, you were trying to say something. Can we try you again?
Guys, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay. So what Arkham is trying to do is trying to create a platform, what I've understood, where we were currently doing that stuff anyway, and we was relying on specific blockchain analysts to like look into certain wallets and let us know if there's any suspicious activity. Web3 services like OpenSea, and they use like some sort of a protocol where if an item is flagged for suspicious activity, they use a process, as you mentioned about ontology and its decentralized um, blockchain analysis services. But what I think what's setting Arkham apart is that they're giving like and incentivizing all those um, individuals who are accustomed to Web3 to be able to give intel about wallets of concern. Now, getting rugged and being part of projects which eventually are not pro community can have a a huge impact on the whole space altogether. So having some sort of a system in place where we know, like, the wallets in question have had some sort of intel provided so that people can, like, be safe, can be somewhat of a game changer, you know but there's like some there's there's levels to it. Like, for example, there was an issue with Arkham Intelligence, Arkham, the way they were storing user data, and then the emails got compromised, and then because of those emails, a lot of users got compromised. So maybe they need to, but those are different issues. But as far as like the protocol is concerned, and as far as like looking into wallets or trying to suss intelligence out from wallet activity, that's that's uh, that's a good thing for Web3, really, because what it's doing, it's like going to eventually help weed out the bad actors. Because if everyone's like giving intelligence about something dot eth is trying to start a something scam token, you know and then once they've done that scam, and then they've moved their funds to something another token, then we need to know where that money went. And if there's a service where you can just pay, like, say, 0.05 ETH and find out that, for that you're going to have that peace of mind, then, you know, it's a game changer. I think we need more
Yeah,
services like that.
yeah. I mean, I think what you're saying is crypto intelligence inherently is not a bad thing, right? Crypto intelligence, while using the data that's readily available on chain, is a great tool to have for more reasons beyond just the fact that this information is just already on chain, it's readily available, but most of us are not equipped with the tools to be able to get meaning from that data, or have the money to be able to like fund the research necessary to get meaning from that data. But the big difference there is you're talking about identities that are themselves separate from real world identities. And I'm just I see your hand there, but I'm gonna read something real quick because, again, I have the white paper here in front of me. Introduction, section 1, de-anonymization is destiny. It makes a comparison here about saying in the early days of the internet, everyone was pseudonymous. Now people use their real identity online. MySpace to Facebook was a microcosm of this transition. The same process is happening with blockchain identities. Consider the rise of ENS and NFT profile pictures. Eventually, everyone's blockchain identity will be linked to their real world identity. I'm bringing this up because I want to draw a very clear line. In fact, several lines here. First of all, the fact that they're using, I don't know why they're using MySpace. Could have said Google, but Facebook as an example of someone using their real world identity. Anyone can create an identity on Facebook. It does not have to be your real identity. Facebook is not asking for your social security number. They're not asking for your government issued ID. You can create a fake email, use that fake email to create an identity. Probably goes against their terms of services to do that, but I am sure many people who are using the platform are not using their real world identity. And if they do, that's their choice. Big key here, choice. The other is they're talking about the rise of ENS and NFT profile pictures as a signal that is happening now with blockchain identities. You're going to tell me that having a monkey picture as a PFP is equal to real world identity, or that my ENS, which could be monkeypicture.eth is equal to my real world identity. Get out of here. Like that really rubbed me the wrong way, because that's a big stretch. Going from, hey, social Web2 social is doing this already, not true. Web3 identities are doing this already, not true. To everyone's blockchain identity will be linked to their world identity. To me, that's an excuse to say we're validating our decision because of what we perceive to be these events in Web2 social and Web3 identities to be a signal that that's the direction we're going to. Go ahead, Polaris.
So there's two things which I would like to add to what you were saying, Hamti. And one is that, like, I recently moved apartments, and my previous apartment used to have like the sun coming towards me in the morning. So my bedroom would have the sun coming up, and then this one, the sun comes up on the other side. And I've been trying to figure out, you know, where my like the location, exact location of how the difference in the way the apartments are facing the sun. And I'm trying to like figure out where in the city and how that happened and the angles change. And after like 5 minutes of trying to figuring it out, I got a headache, bro, because it's not my field, it's not my forte, and it sounds really simple. All you got to do is like point your apartment facing sun towards the sun and finding out the trajectory of the sun and stuff. But I haven't got time to do all of that. I was just trying to figure it out, like, in my mind. I think the same kind of approach happens with blockchain research. And I'll give you an example. Like, we was having some sort of a situation in the ontology community chat, and he was trying to figure out some sort of something with a wallet. And Dumont, for example, automatically just said that, like, I'll figure it out. Let me just go and check the blockchain, because he enjoys that. And he figured it out, and he found out that there was like, whatever the situation was. So there's a lot of us who are born detectives. This is what I'm trying to say. A lot of us are like, predisposition to like figure things out like that. A lot of us are good at storytelling. A lot of, like, we've all got different superpowers. And being in different projects, we always find like, Web3 detectives in each project who are like looking into the blockchain and trying to figure stuff out. So it's good to like come up with a platform. So that's one side of it. The other side is that, the current world which we are living in, especially the West and America and Europe. I mean, in order to answer that second concern which you had, we need to visualize what do we exactly like, what type of a future are we envisioning in the first place, because that would correlate towards how we perceive the current structure of Web3. Like, for example, the way I envision the future right now, and especially with all the information I have currently, the stances of the governments and stuff, what I'm realizing is that in order for me to maneuver in a Web3 environment, and that's saying uh, onboarding, offboarding ramps, in order to get paid in crypto and be able to pay my taxes, and all of that stuff would eventually connect to my identity, and that identity would eventually be connected to my socials, which would eventually be connected to my carbon emissions, and everything would be just one big massive ball. And services like Arkham DIDs and Web3 investigations. So all of them would be like a part of this thing, and I think governments would hire them because I can't see anything like I've mentioned this 2 years ago, if you remember. Like I can't really see a rogue internet, where we're like running businesses based around pseudo anonymous personas. So that's my
I mean,
take on it.
but the internet works like that right now. We run pretty pseudo anonymously, right? Like
I
that's
know,
the point I
bro,
was trying
but
to
when
make
it
earlier with
comes out
Web two
like,
social.
but if I get paid, like let's say if I get paid like in crypto, and if I need to like get that crypto money cashed,
Yeah.
then I would need to offboard in somewhere,
Well,
and I
yeah.
would get KYC,
You got to claim your
and then the
taxes,
whole.
man. Right? Like where? Like I am not a DJ. And like any money that I make, anything that I earn, it's reported. Okay, like whatever you do what you
Exactly.
do out there, but I live my life by the law, and I don't need to take shortcuts, right? Like if I'm earning something, I want to pay my dues. Um, Absolutely, there needs to be some connection, but I guess the point I'm making, it doesn't need to be explicit and public beyond um kind of those institutions that need to have access to them. But even then, one would ask, how does one verify your identity? How does one connect your identity? How does one control that identity beyond just assuming that it's secure and assuming that it is private, right? Because you assume that the information that you report to I don't know, the United States is the IRS. I don't know what it's called around the world. Um, but you assume that information, at least to some degree, is private. I'm sure some of it is public for public reporting causes, like businesses and so on. But to say that should be bountied and made public to just the general public, I mean, there are issues with privacy there, right? And I think that there are laws in place to try to protect us. But at this point, um, I guess making the case that for blockchain to succeed, and by the way, some of the language that they use is also for blockchain to self regulate, right? So keep the man from coming in and regulating us. We need to find ways to self regulate, is to basically de anonymize it and make public our identities. That's not the way. At least, again, my opinion. I'm speaking as myself here. Donnie, you've been quiet for a couple of minutes. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm just letting this bounce around in my head. I haven't really thought deeply about it in any, groundbreaking way. But I see where this could go in both directions, in both like a dystopian and utopian future. And somewhere in the middle is that there is no accountability. Maybe this is what this is inspired from. Maybe it's not. But if there's no accountability from people starting up these businesses that are like halfway regulated and halfway on the books in the crypto world, there are no ramifications for not living up to what you said or promised. So, like in some, I don't know if this is up to the people though, and I guess maybe that's my problem with it. Like if there's a serial killer on the loose in upstate New York where I live, and everybody just is like, you know what, we're the cops now. We're gonna go get him. We're gonna decide what to do with him. Is that really what we want? Like, is it good to have an entirely democratized process of the judgment system, whatever the heck I'm talking? I can't think of the word right now. Judition, whatever. Is it good to have people doing that? Is it good to have private corporations doing that? And is it better to have governments doing it even? Like, who's supposed to do that? Who is best case scenario? What system is that? What does that look like? I don't know. So I guess that's why I don't have a lot to say, because I keep developing more and more questions, and I don't even know how to ask them at this point. There's such a flurry in my head.
Go ahead, Polaris. You don't need to raise your hand, man.
My concern in all of this is when our data gets manipulated by intelligent beings, which are not non-humans, so non-human intelligent beings, which can very easily mimic that. So at that point, reputation, your real life credentials, your everything about you, your digital and carbon footprint would be a personification of who you are, and would also be a testament to your humanity. And I think this would be a big problem going forward, because things can get mimicked. Deepfakes have been here for the last couple of years now. So we're treading on very early grounds as far as like looking at the technology. But deep, like, into the deep trenches of this technology, we see like identity thefts. And if we are not who we are, then, and if we can't, like, prove who we are, then we could be anyone. And if we are anyone, then what's the difference between anyone and us? So yeah, it raises a lot of very interesting questions.
As far as all the deepfake stuff, there is now software coming out that is as strong as the deepfake software, stronger than, that can acknowledge when something is a deepfake. So I am of the opinion typically that when software comes out, or when capabilities come out that are used for what we would consider to be an impure motive or misleading, let's say misguiding, there is usually a rebound to the exact opposite, such that we maintain this balance. So it feels like every time we make a technological leap that's self-leveling, it has to be, because half the people want to do something weird and bad with it, and the other half want to do something weird and equally different with it. And I don't want to label things good and bad. I shouldn't have said that. I mean, some people want to use it to sway the opinions of others, and some people want to use it to stop the opinions of others from being swayed. And that's cool. That's a really great middle ground to live in. So I guess to go back to the question that I hadn't yet had until Humpty prompted me, is it better to have a government or the people digging this data up? And once that data exists, if we are, let's say we're doxing people based on their internet personas, what do we do with that information? Do we do anything with that information? Or does Arkham, or does the United States government, or does NATO? Like where does any of that fall, and what's to be done with it?
That's a good question. And actually, I think that's the positioning that Arkham has taken, right? Their positioning is someone else can already do this with more resources than you. Why shouldn't you? So that's the question, right? Is it ethical to do something that just because someone else can do it too, right? Like my next door
Or is it
neighbor
mandatory?
kicked the dog,
right?
So I can kick the dog too. I mean,
or
I'm trying to figure out a parallel.
It's more in my head. It's almost like, just because someone else can, because someone else can do it, should you do it too? Instead of that, it's like, because someone else can do it the wrong way, is it not then your imperative to do what you consider the right way? Because I think a lot of the questions, or the conversations we've had about what decentralization and blockchain tech can do for humanity, it's to dig up what might ultimately be considered an objective moral truth that sort of doesn't exist, because morality only exists because humans are here. So without it, it doesn't, which means that there is no ultimately right action. There is just the thing that everyone decides then becomes the right action. So maybe this is a really great way of decentralizing something, whether or not the individuals or some portion of them consider it to be correct. In every single election or group, any group of people who have to make a decision, less than half of them will not agree with the decision that's made. And that doesn't mean the decision's wrong. In fact, the fact that it was made makes it correct. So like, where does this fall on that spectrum? If Arkham is allowing people the capability to do anything, and then most people decide to do it, is that just now what the right thing is, regardless of what you and I think?
Yeah, man.
At the end of the day,
These
we like to
are
celebrate democracy, right? We celebrate the power of choice until
right.
we don't agree with it. So like, I don't know where to draw the line. That's why I'm so confused about this entire thing, because it's taking away those really clean lines that, like, the government is in control of this. The police are in control of that. The DMV is in control of your driver's license. Like, but what if everybody else was? And is that good or bad? Are they educated enough, specialized enough to do that thing properly?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think these are all hugely philosophical questions, which I think is much harder to get to a truth, right? Because truth again is you would think it'd be universal across for everyone, but you could say that truth also is it depends on the person who's viewing that. Is that information true or is that information not true? We'd like to agree on something, I guess, is and the closest I can get to is it's privacy laws, I guess, to something like that. But then we're also looking externally for answers to an internal problem. Yeah, it's a tough one. I like how we're a little stumped, and that might not be a bad thing. Anybody in the audience, if you have any thoughts about it, come on up. Obviously, this is an open forum. We try to get at least the base conversation out of the way before bringing people on stage. But obviously, if there's something that's relevant to you, if you are one of the sleuths, as the white paper calls it, who are using the platform, who have used it previously, let us know. If you are some organization that would consider bountying some information, I'd be curious to know what type of information would you consider bountying it, because again, let's make it clear, the real world identity piece of it is not the entire product, right? That's just the more divisive product. So I want to keep saying this because I am not anti-Arkham, Arkham Intelligence, but again, trying to surface some of the discussions and talk about some of the solutions that are in place that may serve, Arkham potentially for maintaining privacy in some of this information. And so maybe that's a good segue to talk about how we think that decentralized identity could be used there. And I'll start. So I was thinking about this, right? Because as someone who's been deeply involved in decentralized identity and data for over 2 years, contributing to many products, not just at Ontology, obviously building Orange Protocol, and then having friends across the DID space like Bright ID, Ceramic, Disco. I'm very deeply involved in this space and trying to understand how we can find solutions using this technology. And thinking about the DID space, or excuse me, the intelligence space, some of the things I thought about is like, well, what if, because if you look at the white paper, again, keep referring to the white paper, it's not that big a read, everybody. Like, you could get through this white paper quite quickly. It's like 9 pages, double spaced. This is like what I would turn into my college reports. Double spaced, pretty big print to cover 9 pages. It's not that big. Every section is probably like 1 paragraph long, and at least towards the end. And each paragraph is like 2 or 3 sentences long. So you can get through this really quickly. Don't rely on me for your source of truth. Like, you can go and just download this white paper and read it for yourself. But one of the things that they talk about is the profiles, user profiles, right? And they talk about profilers in the white paper, and really that is to generate, these insights around entities, as they call it, which entities, human entities, but maybe in the future artificial entities, who knows. But for this case, I imagine strictly human entities, to be able to generate insights from the different activities, on chain, off chain activities, and then information that is provided separately by sleuths, again, as they call it. What if these identities could potentially leverage DID, right, to generate a profile for a user or an identity? Because it's not a user. I'm not on the platform, and I'm not agreeing or consenting to this information being shared about me, or validating that this information is true about me too, by the way, right? Because at this point, it's kind of like guilty until proven innocent. That's another point I wanted to make, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, how do we know this information is true and accurate? Sure, they have this validation system, which is run by the foundation themselves, the Arkham Foundation. But a lot of the information that is submitted, and if they approve it, then it's true until someone challenges it and says, this is wrong. This is not me. This someone stole my identity. Who knows? Number of different things.
It's exactly what we do with everything else, right? I mean, we thought that the Earth was the center of the universe until we proved ourselves wrong. Everything we do is always just until we've decided it's not true anymore. Also, if the information's out there,
the Earth's reputation wasn't being hurt.
No, it was our reputation.
Like the Earth was not like the Earth was probably like, bro,
Totally.
if you want to think that I'm flat, go for it. Try to jump off, and you'll see that you'll just land.
Yeah, figure it out. You're gonna fall right back on the Earth. Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. I feel like if the data's out there, like if I have been sloppy or I don't know, just normal, truthful about where my accounts are, and even though I've not KYC'd into a lot of my wallets, if you can logistically track them in a way that I've done and the paper trail's there, like, I don't know, isn't that maybe I just shouldn't partake at all if I don't want to be found out? And I'm saying this as an unpopular opinion that I don't necessarily believe, but it's my opinion that I don't really have anything to hide, and I don't even know how I could be held accountable. Maybe this is just coming from a place of privilege, having been in the United States where the government is like mostly not trying to hurt me all the time. Nobody's trying to exploit me regularly.
Yep.
So I always feel like if something does happen, it never goes wrong. It never goes far enough to really be wrong. So in my mind, I don't have a fear of being found because I've put myself out there all the time.
That's a dangerous opinion, and because you basically are making a statement, and I'm not saying that this is your position on this, because I think you stated that earlier, but you're making an opinion that says, because I have nothing to hide, this is the way. I think we need
until another world war comes around, and then like people who are 6 feet tall and bald are now going to be, chastised somehow, right? Like, yeah, because it's really nothing's a problem until it is a problem. And if I fall into a category of people who are now on the hunt or being hunted somehow, and I have no way of hiding that's a bad situation to be in. It's just never happened to me before.
Right, and just so I can cap off what I was trying to say earlier with like profiles and decentralized identity, there could be a way to record some of this information off chain using decentralized identifiers, recording everything as a verifiable credential, so that, again, this information isn't necessarily revealing any PII. By the way, but that still doesn't resolve the issue that PII is being sold, right? Bought and sold. So we need to consider the implications. Not saying that's right and wrong. Again, I'm trying to just keep an open mind here, just presenting the fact. We need to, we need to talk about the potential implications of buying and selling PII, like personal identifiable information, right? Which is, this is who I am, this is where I live, this is my phone number, et cetera, et cetera. Polaris, I think you were trying to say something, and then you might have gotten booted. Did you want to add something?
See, that information is already out there. People are just like connecting the dots, aren't they? If those sleuths are like, connecting the dots, which are already out there, they're not like creating that data themselves. Then it's this is something which is definitely needed. Like sometimes you need to know, like, if bad actors are doing what are they doing? And it's already happening. If someone's like, providing service to a community, that like, you've got a bad actor who's done this, and now they're planning to do this, their wallets are doing this. then also if that wallet information can be connected to their Twitter account, which if they verified is doxed, then it's providing some sort of security on these uh, in this industry where we've been like, rugged left, right, and center. It's just my perspective on this. Like we was talking about information and doxing, but the thing is that like the information's out there. Not everyone is like fine tuned enough to be able to go deep into the blockchain and find out and connect the dots. And if someone is doing that, taking their time, it takes time to do that. They're getting incentivized. So I'm just like trying to like, I haven't looked at the white paper, Humpty, but I have read and I have listened to the CEO, and from what I've sussed is that like this is something which could possibly be needed in this industry in terms of investigative uh, potential using the power of the community. And I do like the idea of decentralized identifiers. But those decentralized identifiers, again, like, are being created on a blockchain which is public. So if someone was to,
Incorrect.
so they would be not, those identifiers would be stored off chain, connected
DIDs
to,
and VCs inherently are non-public off-chain primitives. That's actually kind of one of the, I guess, what would I call it? I'm trying to use language that bridges and doesn't split people up. But last year, if you remember, there was that whole SBT VC divide where there was a group of people that wanted identities to be public and composable, and that was the SBT camp, soulbound tokens. And there was the DIDVC camp, which was like things. Not everything needs to be off chain, on chain. There's still a way to kind of do composability. It's just not as straightforward because it's not an on-chain primitive. And those were the DIDVC folks. At the end of the day, the product that I built last year, Orange Protocol, said, forget this infighting or disagreements. Let's do both. Why don't we use DIDs and VCs for some of what we do to kind of generate interoperable identities, multi-chain identities, and also record these attestations off chain in a self-sovereign way, right? Where it's user owned. And then use SBTs for kind of abstracting that private data away and adding that composability layer. I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to say is too, like there's ways to do both. And it's just a matter of like thinking through the opportunities and technical complexities because it's not straightforward. I think when you think of an on-chain world, most of my opinion, and I think that this might be true, most people choose to do on-chain exclusively because it's easier. The standards are inherently interoperable and composable. So why not? If you introduce an off-chain primitive that doesn't necessarily work so easily with those standards, then it's just a layer of complexity. But if we can facilitate this technology to increase privacy, I say, let's do it. Let's go for it. My other concern would be consent, right? So I think anything when we talk about self-sovereign identities and verifiable credentials that live off-chain is consent, giving people a choice to share this information, to validate this information. Maybe, and I saw they have a marketplace. Just by the way, it's a two-way marketplace. It's pretty well drawn out. They have some nice illustrations in their white paper, and I would say they talk about there being ways for these two in separate types of actors on their platform, the people, the brands, the individuals who are creating bounties to get certain information, and then the hackers or developers, whatever you want to call them, that it will go and generate these insights and then sell that. There could be a third actor that gets paid in all this, and that's the actual user. It's like the user signs up, creates their account, sees all of these different attestations being made about them, and can agree or disagree and get paid for telling the truth. I don't know how that would work, but it's just another way to consider a two-sided marketplace to become a three-sided marketplace, which I think is quite innovative, actually.
It's kind of like social recovery, right? But not quite the same thing.
I don't know how that would be social recovery. Social recovery is, at least if I understand what you're asking, social recovery is you lost your private keys, you need to regain access to your account, and you basically have
Right.
given permission to a group, like an individual or a group of users, kind of like a multi-sig almost, to say, if these three people agree together that I am indeed me trying to recover this account, it is recoverable.
Yeah. I mean, similar concept, right? Like it could work anyway, not to say that it's exactly the same thing, but if we're trying to give power to the users in as like the third section or segment of this transaction, it would be like a if we all agree, then it is situation, which is sort of what social recovery is, even if it's a segmented group, like a very specific group of people, which I think every
Sure.
democratic system kind of is a segmented group of people, because it has to be. Whenever it's more than just 30 people in a society, you can't, not everybody can vote on every single issue. You have to vote representatives in who then make the decisions, and it's true of every single nation that has any sort of democratic process. So it feels
it's
like
a set
that.
of agreements.
Yeah, it's almost like the natural progression. Like, I can't believe that this didn't already exist. If it exists in every other way, that we vote in representatives to make these social decisions. It just seems like a natural progression for it to occur.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize my mic was open. Consent agreements. I think agreements and even consent are recognized in law. And I don't know why this should be any different, especially when we talk about insights or intelligence being how we self-regulate. We need to think the way a lawmaker would think, which again would be a set of agreements, and consent would be a part of that too. Again, all of this primarily because of the PII, right? I'm not going to be a hypocrite here and say that the same should be about on-chain data, because that's how blockchain has been able to scale and prove a value proposition. Is on-chain data is composable. NFTs, I think part of the reason why they have succeeded as much as they have on Ethereum and on other blockchains, and now Bitcoin, obviously, is the fact that, well, they're pretty simple to execute. Maybe not so much on Bitcoin yet, but they're pretty simple to execute. Bring people together through kind of this shared contract, literally and figuratively, right? It's a social contract, figuratively. It's a smart contract, literally. But they are also able to then build with these Legos. These NFTs now become a composable piece of the new internet, if you will, where I can, call that contract and provide access to something else through another smart contract, or wrap that into another contract, and now you have access to a different NFT. Whatever. Like, that's really kind of one of the big superpowers of crypto and blockchain. So if it's on-chain data, I think it's fair game to create intelligence from that. PII, real-world identities, that's where I guess would challenge it a little bit. We have 3 minutes to go, by the way. This has been a good conversation for me anyways. I don't know about you guys, but for me, this definitely was in line to a lot of things that I've been thinking a lot about. And just generally, I think it just kind of vibed with the ontology decentralized identity piece of their technology. Anything else you wanted to add before we cut out here? Let's start with Polaris.
No, it's okay. It's been a fantastic conversation, bro. Um, Looking forward to our next conversation. And look after yourself. Um, and take care, everyone.
Yep. Donnie, what's up, man? Any last words before we
Nothing, just that
cut?
none of the viewpoints that I expressed are my own. I'm always just talking from the viewpoint of a robot who might have a thought, because I think that is a healthy way to go through strategic planning. Like if this were board work, it's not operational. We're not like figuring out how to execute this thing. We're talking about whether or not something ought to be done, and how it may vaguely go about being done. And I think it's good to view it from every single perspective that we have available to us. And I guess there's a whole bunch of me up here in my head. So thanks for talking. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, this space has always been about debate, about philosophy, about um, kind of exploring this very novel space and technology. And so def that's why we always invite people up here, right? If they want to challenge this. And again, this is also the reason why I have sent out an invitation to the co-founder and CEO to chat, because I don't know everything, and I want to learn more, and I want to be, if not proven wrong, share a different perspective. So this has all been for the sake of debate, for education, for moving the needle forward, if you will. So definitely, this is our weekly space. We're here every week on Thursdays. I don't know what the UTC is, so I'm just going to give the Eastern time. That'd be 3 p.m. No, 4 p.m. Eastern time to 5 p.m. Eastern time every week. That said, I'm going to be on holiday next week, so if I can't find someone else to lead this, we might skip a
Where are you
week.
going?
Where am I going?
Yeah.
I'll be in Vegas, baby.
Nice. Have fun. My brother's a bartender there. Hit me up and I'll tell you where he works.
Ooh, fun stuff. I like good whiskey cocktails, so would love to hang out. I really
He's also a
I really
digital
want to check out
artist.
the Sphere. The Sphere looks
Oh yeah, dude.
so
He
cool.
says it's pretty wild to look at. And yeah, he says it's kind of off-putting and really wigs his brain out when he drives by it at night.
It's huge, like the size of the moon. Yeah, I mean, obviously not the size of the moon, but yeah, it's a big, massive thing. It's a big, massive structure. So I like engineering, feats of engineering, and so I'm going specifically for that, but also entertainment to kind of see what the cool graphic stuff they're doing on it looks like in person.
Yeah, it looks wild in videos and pictures. I can't imagine what it's like close up. I hope to get to Vegas pretty soon to visit and check that big ball out. It's wild. Yeah, but
I should
seriously,
have
I'll hit
told
you
you
up and
ahead of
let you know
time.
where
We
he's
could have
looking.
met up.
Maybe next time. I'm all over the place this year, and I think traveling is for bull runs. So I'll be doing a lot more of that in like a year and a half, maybe.
All right. Well, hey, who knows? With the news of XRP, we might see a little bump. I know we wanted to talk about that, and I'm sorry we didn't really give too much space for that.
Oh no,
But that's great
next
news
time.
for the crypto industry at large. I want to recognize that too. The case of XRP is a big win for everyone, not just XRP and XRP holders. All right. With that said, GM to everyone, wherever you're tuning in from, we'll see you again next week. Bye bye.